So another thing I found out is the hood wasn't closing. So just bought a new latch. It doesn't secure. When I took it all apart and looked at it, it's just so wore out that it's not jammed or anything. It just won't stay closed. Little mechanism's kind of wore out. So that's like $14. So the other project today was to get the shocks off. Really easy. So what I did is obviously I took the bolts off. I used an air impact to get them off the bolts, and they're just real small, these little bolts here, you can see that, and a bunch of washers. So the studs, it's like a stud that sticks out, a threaded stud, you see there, and it has a bunch of washers on it. But the classic picture I've seen in manuals for years with the fluid leaking out of the shock, it's the first time I've ever seen it with all the shocks I've ever replaced. And on the other side, actually the other shock had a Toyota sticker on there, so I'm wondering if it's original or somebody's like really rich and bought a brand new shock from the dealership. So the other thing is, once you get the nuts off, the shock's not going to come off as it's on there pretty hard with these rubber bushings. So what I did is use this, and this fits right over top of that, right over top of this stud sticking out of there, and I pounded that on there. And once you pound it on there, of course that was going to kick on. So it's my Harbor Freight air compressor. Not impressed with it. It's 165 psi, but it has a hard time keeping up, so probably don't recommend it. But back to the shocks. So I pounded this in there, in between the chassis and there, and pounded that in there. And then with this thickness, it pushed off the. With this pounded in there, it moved like 3/4 of the shock off that shaft. So then once I take this out of there, then I can just wiggle and pull it off. I could have sprayed some stuff in there. You can see it's pretty dry. I think probably would have did that the night before. It might have helped. But even with taking off one bolt, you could barely move the shock back and forth left to right. But I did the same thing on both sides with that fork, and both top and bottom. And well, the bottom mainly. The top, I had a problem. It was hard to get it in there, this thing, and beat it in there. So what I did is I used this mainly on the passenger side and got right against it and hit it right here. And the other one, you'll see it's all chewed up in air impact, and it pushed it right off. And I was going to give up on this thing. I bought this yesterday from Harbor Freight, and used it for something else, and it didn't seem really strong or anything, but today it did the job really good, and I'm surprised. So I guess it's a keeper for 14 bucks, I think it was. How can you go wrong? And you look at it, it looks exactly like the ones you see in shops, but obviously they're a different brand. But for what I'm doing home, perfect. So I'm just trying to put stuff in bags because I have no idea what I'm doing with all the bolts and all that flying out everywhere. I jacked up the vehicle really high. I didn't plan to take the wheels off, but I guess it'll make it a lot easier to get the shocks and all that, so I did. And I disconnected a few things back here, these lines, because when you drop it down, the hoses and these lines are really being stretched to the limit. So I took off a bracket on the other side, and I think this should be low enough. I could lower the one side down enough and then slide that cap in there. It's shaped like a gutter. I'll probably slide it in this way, but it's, you know, it's an arch like that, 45 degrees maybe, or something like that, maybe a little bit more. But I don't know if that'll be enough. We'll see. If I don't want to put it down anymore to the ground, but this side I could, no problem. I just don't like the drive shaft coming apart here. I guess as long as nothing turns. it should be okay. It's keyed. It should slip right back in there. But I don't like stretching these other lines over there, and a lot of these other ones, you can't loosen them or you can't move them, extend them, unless you take them apart, and I don't want to bleed the brakes and go through all that if I don't have to. So this side could come a little bit lower, and then the other side could probably come 2 inches lower, just enough to slide that cap in there, and then I'll jack it back up and put the block. So yeah, you need to have a lot of wood on hand. These 2x8s or 10s, and cutting up all kind of scrap, and it looks kind of crazy. I know, I agree, and I don't like this, but it's so high already, the truck. That's the problem. So to get these jack stands underneath, you have to use some wood. I guess technically I could have lowered this side down a little bit more, and then it would have lowered the back too, but it's really stable. I try to put one board this way and one the other way, and I don't really lay under it too much, other than when I'm going to be welding. I'm going to have to lay under there a lot. And I use my MIG welder, and you can see the big crack right here in the frame there. The other side, you know, this thing was ready to break in half. Amazing that it didn't. But I'll be glad when this is all back together. There's a lot of good strong steel starting right here, even right up to the crack. But the cap goes a lot further than that weld spot there. The cap actually goes all the way to this bracket here, which is really solid to weld to. So this thing's going to be really strong and secure. You always got to worry about how far the rust goes, either left or right of the shackle mount, because I'm guessing that there's probably a limit. I guess there's caps for this part here too. They sell. I don't know, but I guess I'm glad I don't want to find out, because these are fine. There's that hole. Got to fix that. Maybe today. It should be really easy compared to everything else I did. Yeah, it takes about a week for the caps to come. Bought them from a place in Rhode Island. Safety cap, it's called. And not too bad, expense-wise. But I think you save a lot of money. You do it all yourself. And then the other thing is, if you have a welder, I bought a MIG welder. I've been using it over the years to build cars. If you see my channel, there's a bunch of other cars I built. So I got my money's worth out of that MIG welder. Kind of misusing it for about a couple months now. The other thing is, I noticed that bushings, when I get them, they might be snug to get in there, slide in there. And I hope they are, because I would prefer to take out this line here right here all the way around. I definitely want to take that out. So I'll see the ones I ordered, how they fit. If they're not snug, then I probably will send them back, because I really don't want to keep that in there. That shouldn't be left in there. Let's hope that's not too hard. I'm guessing the same thing. I might sod right here somewhere, because if I go a little too far, you can see there's a little gap in between the end of the spring and the regular body part. So I can go a little bit through there, and then get an air hammer in there, or a chisel and a hammer, and bend it out and then pull that out. I mean, that's my idea in theory. We'll see after hundreds, thousands of miles how easy that's going to come out of there. But when I drilled in there, this one didn't really get damaged. The other side got damaged more. So that's another reason really why I want to take those out of there. They should be taken out. I heard other people grind the bushing down and they put it in there and leave that in there. I don't think I want to do it that way. But we'll see. That's the least of the project I need to worry about. That crack there is pretty tight, so that tells me that the body's pretty level where it should be sitting. But I guess I think it's a little too high in the back if you look at the gap. So probably going to drop the back down a little bit more before I weld it, You see the gap here is bigger than there at the top, and that's a good marker. And I noticed it was perfect until today when I jacked this up. So that probably closed the gap at the top, so it just tells me it's a little bit high. But the main reason is to get the cap into there, underneath that spring there. So what else? Took out the front bumper because I need to replace the bottom piece of it. This is the bumper upside down. And the other thing is these are bent. It was sagging a lot. But I don't have no idea what the ones should look like. Because need to look online. I mean, to me it looks like it's bent here. But then if you straighten that out, then these bolt holes ain't going to line up. It was sagging a little bit. So I really have to know exactly where to bend it. It's making it sag. And I noticed these are notched. So I'm probably, maybe I could get it adjusted enough with those slotted holes, or not slotted, but oversized holes, to get it to be level without trying to bend it back. Because maybe it's not really bent. Even though it looks to me, maybe it's not bent. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. So if anybody knows, I guess let me know if your front bumper brackets look like that. The other thing there was it's too dense in here. I'm going to try to take out, but let's hope it doesn't crack the chrome on the outside because it's in good shape. This bottom piece I just seen yesterday, sorry, this top piece, spacer right here along the top of the bumper is cracked right there. So probably should replace that. Now's the time. I guess I'm gonna look online and see how much. But I'm not trying to make this a brand new vehicle. And I was gonna replace these, but I don't think I am now. Now I took them off, they seem they're okay. I think I'm gonna send back the ones I bought. It's only $24, but you know, every little bit adds up. I wanna watch the dollars I put in this, because mainly, like I was saying earlier, this is just gonna be a yard work hauling kind of truck. But you never know, maybe I'll drive it a lot with errands and everything. Then yesterday I had to glue this, it was coming off. I'll use some RTV because if I ever get a new grill, like this breaks or whatever, I'm sure the grills don't come with that. You probably gotta pay crazy money for a little logo. The exhaust, I took that off, and I kind of made it kind of easy because it the shocks are near that. I'm gonna buy the bump stop and see, is the bump stop is this the plate for the bump stop, you know, and it was the rubber bump stop attached to that, glued or somehow attached to that. I'm gonna see. I guess the right way is to loosen up those U-bolts and drop it down enough to get this plate out of there with the bump stop. So we'll see. I hate to Mickey Mouse it, but I just hate taking apart more and more stuff. We'll see. I mean, you spend the money on the bump stop, you might as well do it right. There's the fuel tank strap hanging down. It's free, come loose. And I'm gonna clean all this up, but I think some people put like anti-seize grease around here. I just really worried about putting stuff like that around by the lug nuts, you know. So we'll see what I do about that. The bushing was really hard to get in there. I almost think if this thing was a little bit wider, it would be a little bit better, because it's really, really tight to get that in there. So what I did is I get it in there the best I can, and then I put a jack like right here, carefully, because you can bend this probably. There's so much, and I jacked up and tried to push that up in there. And while you're pushing that up in there, it's pushing this up against the frame, which is where you want it to be anyways. And then you have to put a C-clamp from here down to here to hold this, pinch it together. And then every so often put a C-clamp from here to here. I have a real deep one that went all the way up to there when you put it in from this side, Harbor Freight, and squeeze it there, because you want this to be tight against there when you're welding it. You don't want a big gap. So I had to do it all along the whole thing. But this thing is really, really strong. Really impressed with the steel 11 gauge. I don't know, it might be thicker than the original frame, but it's not going nowhere. It's really secure. And that's about all for now. Thanks for watching. And because the outside of them was like wearing out, and I'm afraid you take it off and on a couple more times, it might strip and you'll never get it off then. And that would be a nightmare to get that bolt out of there, up in there, to try to get that nut. Even though the bolt's not attached, it's kind of unique little setup. I guess that's all for now. Hopefully the next video will be me fixing the AC. I'm gonna rent all the pump again from the auto parts store for free. They just charge you initially and then they credit it all back. I did it before, did 2 other cars, so I should know what I'm doing. Hopefully it won't blow anything up. Okay, hit subscribe and look for my next project. See you later.